pick it back up because there's literally a disconnect when the phone is between us and another person. It doesn't matter your age, you feel a physical disconnect in the relationship.
Welcome to the Core Insights podcast, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of human potential. Here at Core Insights, we're peeling back the layers of human experience to reveal core truths that drive personal growth, authentic living, and peak performance. Each episode will be joined by members of our exceptional Core Elements team, seasoned therapists and coaches who are passionate about helping you unlock your full potential. We're not just sharing theories from textbooks. We're sharing real-world wisdom gained from years of practice, cutting-edge training, and most importantly, the profound experience of working with clients just like you. Let's begin this journey together. Welcome to Core Insights, where transformation starts at the core. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we have Kaylee here today talking about tech and kids and screens and social media and what the heck we're supposed to do about it, because it's a very overwhelming and daunting subject for most parents. So Kaylee, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this realm, this topic?
Yeah, I think ultimately is because we were struggling with it.
Yeah.
So my background is as a registered nurse. We have 4 kids, my husband and I, and when our oldest was end of grade 4, beginning of grade 5, he started asking for a cell phone. And all I knew was that it wasn't the right timing. It's just kind of a gut feeling, but I didn't know why. And then a couple of months later, I heard about this presenter that was in town. It was Colin Karchner, and it was really inconvenient time, but I just really felt like we needed to get there. And so we made it to that presentation that night. And it was the first person who had like the research to back up that gut feeling that I had. And I was like, oh, nice. Like I actually do need to do some homework on this. So I think that was my wake up call. And then from there, I kind of jumped into the research. And I think because of my background in nursing, I really kind of ate up all of the science piece of it, how it affects the brain. And I enjoyed learning about it, but also felt like there was something tangible I could do to navigate our way through how to deal with this. So some of it was trial and error, and as parenting always is for first children.
Our rookie
Totally. So trial and error and keep learning. And I guess how I've gotten to this place is as I got more educated, my concern grew from my own kids to this generation of kids. And my oldest, when he was going into middle school, it was COVID. That was like going back into COVID restrictions. And those kids were not talking to each other. He was the only kid in his class of 34 kids without a cell phone. And so when they'd have lunch break, they'd all go on their phones. And my worry, it was hard for him, but my worry was the big picture. Like, how are these kids going to learn how to communicate? How are they going to have relationships? How are they going to learn to be uncomfortable? And so that's when I felt like, okay, I need to start sharing what I'm learning. And so that's when I ended my 10-year break from social media. I started an Instagram page, and it's called Book Cram. And basically the idea behind that was parents are maxed out and busy and don't have time to do the homework. So if I can work cover to cover through some of these really helpful books and provide snippets of manageable amounts for parents, then maybe they learn a little bit and that can help some people. So that's kind of how it started. And it's cover to cover through books all about this topic. And then I'd arranged for some speakers in our school division. And so met people that way, and actually ended up on another podcast. And a lady in town here followed that podcast and was like, we need you to come speak at this. And so it kind of started at like some church type youth speaking events, and then school presentation. It's just kind of been word of mouth. And then last year I did take a certification course. Dr. Nicholas Carderis puts that on. And so it's like a certification in tech addiction and digital health.
What a new diagnosis.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Connection in digital health.
So, yeah,
So what do you think
so
about?
it's kind of just been evolving. It wasn't my plan all along, but here I am. I've learned a lot. When I look back on what I used to know, I do feel like I've learned a lot, but I think it's been a very slow and steady process over time.
Mhm.
And so that's what I hope parents really grab onto, is that it's not all at once. Like, pick one small thing, and that's what I would change. And that change had to start with me first.
Mhm.
I think that's a big thing for parents to learn, is that if we think our kid has a problem with their cell phone, we probably need to start with us first and be like, okay, how long am I on here? Where am I
Right.
using it? When am I using it? Am I putting it down when somebody tries to talk to me?
Mhm.
Oof.
And really check in with ourselves. And then as I worked on it and started sharing with my family what I was learning, then there was more opportunity for change in our home, but it has been slow and steady
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So
Thanks. Big
Yeah.
topics.
I love that. When I worked at Family Center for several years, we had started to see the effects of technology use with parents on their kids first. So one thing that really struck me was a study about babies and facial expressions of moms. So when you have a really blank face, like the one you have when you're looking at your phone and your child's trying to interact with you, there can be some attachment issues that kind
Yes.
of come up, right? And some distress in the child if they're always seeing
Mhm.
a parent with a blank face. What are some of the effects that you've come to learn through your research of maybe overuse of technology or it interfering with those relationships, like you were saying?
So they've actually, I think just in the last couple of years, they've got a definition for that now, which is technoference. And so,
Technoference.
Love that.
that's literally when usually the parent is ignoring the child.
Yeah.
And I mean, pay attention anywhere you go in life and you see that happening in stores or waiting rooms or restaurants or
Well, as a parent, I can admit like that's happened to
Yes,
me, right?
yes.
It could be the most innocent thing. I'm on Pinterest looking for a recipe while I'm making
Yes.
dinner. My, kiddo's trying to talk to me. I'm like, just 1 second. I'm looking at this. But again, we didn't grow up with this. This is new for my generation.
Yes.
So I can see how it gets sucked in. Cause I'm like, I just got to finish this recipe or see what their video is going to show me or what's going to happen next. And you're staring at the screen while your kid's like, mom, 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 mom.
Yes,
Right?
totally.
Yeah.
That's totally, and it's that easy
Yeah,
too that it
easy.
happens.
And my cats will bat that phone down. Literally, or my dog who's sitting beside you will like
Get it out of
nudge
the
it.
way.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's one of the things actually I've learned is to just verbalize when I do need to use it. I don't know the directions to the birthday party. I just need to text dad quick about this.
I like that.
Because they have no idea if I'm scrolling mindlessly or if I'm actually using it as a tool.
Oh, I like that.
And so
Yeah.
verbalizing is a really helpful thing that I've learned.
And you give me time. So I just need to look at this recipe. I'd be 5 minutes. Or I need to look at these directions,
Yes.
But while it's directing, I can still look at you.
But when you're telling them that, if you turn it off and put it down first and say, I just need to check this first,
Nice.
and it's going to take this amount of minutes, and then pick it back up, because there's literally a disconnect
Yeah.
when the phone is between us and another person. Doesn't matter your age, you feel a physical disconnect in the relationship. And so, I think making sure we're looking at them when we're doing that is helpful.
Love that. Even with your partner. I think that's a good idea.
yeah.
In all relationships, actually. Or
All relationships.
all relationships.
Yeah. Put
I
the
like
person
that.
first.
Excellent.
So other effects, I would say, if we want to kind of start from the youngest ages, toddlers, preschoolers, they're finding language delay is a big one related to screen time. Increased symptoms of like autism can show up too. There's also, maybe we jump to this after, but I was going to share a bit about what it actually does to the brain. But let's do this first. So, social skills, they're not learning how to socialize as well. Just standardized testing that they do on our preschoolers, like being able to stack blocks with their motor skills, those are lagging now. And they're finding that even as early as 3 years old, especially in males, they're finding a delay in their motor skills. There's also an increased risk of myopia. And so that's problems with their eyes because of the closeness of the screen and the overstimulation. There's some research that shows that their pupils are larger than adults too. So they're taking more in as well with the screens. And so that's kind of the littler kids. When you're getting into teens, middle schoolers, young adults can affect adults too. but it's just increased ADHD symptoms, sleep deprivation symptoms look a lot like ADHD as well. So there's a lot of sleep deprivation, anxiety, depression, suicide, all kinds of psychological problems. The suicide increase, one of the stats, and this is out of The Anxious Generation. I don't know if you guys have read that book, but so completed suicide, not attempts, from 2010 to 2020 increased by 109% for boys and 134% for girls. There's also the decreased interaction and socializing and connecting with people. So we need about 70% of the time when we're communicating needs to be with eye contact, and lots of our teams now at around 20% eye contact is what they can handle. Social media specifically, there's the unrealistic comparisons that are happening a lot. A ton of drama when you have that 24/7 social life, the online bullying that we hear lots about, and there's often no consequences for bullying on there. It's hard to track them down, or anyway, lots of screen addiction with social media as well, just needing to be on there all the time. In gaming, there's increased aggression that they're finding with a lot of gaming time and a lot of distractibility. We are a distracted generation. The human attention span used to be 12 seconds, and we've dropped down to 8 seconds, which is actually lower than a goldfish. I read. So a goldfish is 9 seconds and we're 8 seconds, which is kind of disturbing. So we're just distracted. And then there's also the whole world of pornography exposure, way younger exposure to that. And pornography now is way more abusive. It's depictions of rape. And so that's impacting, it's being used as like sex training for some of our young people. So that's affecting us. There's also just online predators and sextortion. And so there's more of that as well now with being online more. So yeah, there's all kinds of effects on that, and kind of the brain science piece of it that I no matter who I'm doing a presentation for, I love to share how it affects the brain. And so the human brain isn't fully developed until our mid-20s. Sometimes in males, it's till late 20s. And so the brain grows starting from the back and works its way to the front. And the back is where our pleasure centers are. So Dr. Jason Carroll is who I like to reference when I teach about the brain. And he refers to the back of the brain as being like a gas pedal. And so the front of our brain, our frontal cortex, would be our brakes. So our decision-making, task completion, emotional regulation, all of those really important things, social skills, all the most important part of our brain isn't fully developed till much later.
Real estate's up here.
Yes, totally. And so I think sometimes in our world, we're like, why can't kids just like think like an adult? Like they physically can't. They're not going to use a device. As an adult, it's hard to put a screen down. So if they don't have that part of the brain, it's way harder for them to put the screen down. So they're driving with their gas pedal and not their brakes. And so what the research is showing is that any kind of interactive handheld touch screen is so stimulating to the brain, they get a release of dopamine. And so they're getting instant and high hits of dopamine. When we get a natural hit of dopamine, like from eating food, it's a gradual increase and a gradual decrease. And with our screen time, it's an instant high hit. When the screen or the video game's turned off, our dopamine plummets. And so we literally have withdrawal symptoms. And when we are having dopamine hits, maybe for hours at a time, that's when our brain can rewire and it can lead to addiction. And so we have to keep in mind there's physical things going on in the brain when we're on our screens, and our body can even go into a state of fight or flight with a bit of an adrenaline rush. And so when you see a kid having a meltdown because you took the iPad away, that's a physical withdrawal symptom. That's when we actually quit using iPads. I was like, okay, if my kids are going to watch a movie, then we're going to do it on the TV that's across the room. It's way less stimulating to the brain because of the distance from the eyes. And when it's interactive, it's even more stimulating. So
Mhm.
a game would be more stimulating than of watching a movie. So, and when it comes to when you actually put this into perspective, our 0 to 2 year olds should have zero screen time unless it's a FaceTime with a
Right.
family member. Our 2 to 5 year olds, and this is according to the Canadian Pediatric Society, our 2 to 5 year olds should be having less than an hour per day. And our 6 to 17 year olds and us adults should be having a max of 2 hours per day. So that would be for adults outside of work. This
Right.
is entertainment, leisure, screen time.
Right.
Now, the stats are showing from last year, our teens are spending anywhere from 7 to 9 hours a day on a screen. The
Mhm.
average is 7.5. Our young teens are spending up to 9 hours a
Yeah.
day.
And that's not like watching podcasts.
No.
That's TikTok.
That's entertainment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
just boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom,
Yes.
boom.
And so where are they fitting those hours
Yeah.
in their day when they go to school?
Mhm.
Like that's having
Or at
another
night, like I
job.
said, sleep
It's all
deprivation.
night.
Yeah.
Yeah, sleep deprivation. And so if you think about that amount of time, not only is it harmful for their brain, their development, but what are they missing out
Mhm.
on when you do that for hours and hours at a time?
Mhm.
You know, all the other things
Yeah.
you're not getting to do with
Yeah.
it, being outside or physical activity or time with friends, or maybe it's learning an instrument or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So that's another big impact. And also I think really in that's what's impacting, I think, so much with the anxiety in our young people now is we are alone, and sometimes they're all together and
Mhm.
alone on their screens,
Mhm.
you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
And so they're just, I don't know, learning to be present and have conversations with people is one thing that I just hope really
Yeah.
starts to change.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot more of us parents are learning about it and are waking up, and we didn't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They came out as this new
Yeah.
thing that was really convenient and helpful and handy, and
Yeah.
we didn't know. So now we're learning, and I
Like
think
smoking back in the day. It's good for you.
Totally.
yes, it's
And they're like,
exactly
"Oh,
like
it's actually
that.
not."
It's exactly like that.
Yeah.
And I think that was just a lot of really heavy information. And I know for myself, being a parent of small kids, tech brings along a lot of guilt
Mm.
because I'll use the TV and shows and movies as a tool so I can get stuff done around
Yes.
the house. So I can
Mhm.
actually like make supper.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do all the things. So when I do that, there's always that little thing in the back of my mind being like, is this the right thing to do? I don't
Mhm.
So I like earlier we were talking about how you can take small bite-sized steps in the right direction,
Mhm.
right? I think something that both Alicia and I bring into therapy is that any movement in the right direction is a win.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be doing all or nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So these, like you were saying, little things that you can do to improve the situation at home. When I think about teenagers, I think they're one of the most affected groups,
Mhm.
especially by the social aspect of it. What's a small step that parents can take to improve that situation for older kids?
I think the two most important things that parents could do is first just learn more about it, get
Mhm.
educated about it. But the second thing would be to have a family tech plan. And so one of my favorite resources, her name is Andrea Davis. Her website is Better Screen Time. And she has a book that is 10 mini lessons that you can have as a family that walk you through learning about technology a bit and coming up with where you use it, when you use it, how long, and having it as a plan that you work at as a family. And if that feels like too much, having 10 mini lessons, she's got like a condensed quick version on her website that
For our goldfish brains.
yes, for our goldfish brains. And so I think that resource is one of my favorites because we just all have to get on the same page. Like when my son was first asking for a phone, it felt like him against me or him
Mhm.
against us. And
Yeah.
as I became more educated and I do a better job of educating my children, and then had conversations with them and brought them into the conversation. What do you think this should look like for our family? What do you think is reasonable?
Mhm.
What would be the reason for needing this technology? We were on the same page. It was like us tackling tech together instead of parent first child.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would be, I think, one of the most helpful things. When you have little kids, you can still incorporate it in a way, I think, that they learn that your family discusses things together. So we have a family meeting every Sunday it's always a little bit of a nightmare, guys. It's we have a very imperfect family. I'm going to say that right now. But like we do calendaring. That's how we plan family holidays, like have that check-in time. And then you can incorporate the tech into those conversations when you need to. And so I think that's just like having those family discussions, and we have to literally set aside time, and it's a struggle basically every week to be like, okay, guys, we're doing our family, like get everybody there. We're
5
doing
minutes.
it. Yes, totally.
Yeah.
And, but I do think it has created a habit in our home that we have those conversations.
Yeah.
And so I guess some of the other little things I would say to start with, getting screens out of the bedroom would be, I think, a big one in my mind. TVs, computers, video games, like create a space where they go there and they can unwind and have a space where it's a break for their brain and not full of distraction. That would be another good starting point, I think. There's tons of suggestions, but those are probably my top two.
I love the no screens in the
Favorite ones.
bedroom thing. Because that's not just for kids.
No.
That's for mom and dad too.
Yeah.
Because that's something that my husband and I did, because we're like, what are we doing? Because we'll go sit in bed and we're both just like
Yeah.
on our phones instead of actually like talking to each other and
Yes.
connecting before we go to bed. So yeah, we don't have a TV in our room. We try not to have phones in our room.
Yeah.
Not perfect.
Yeah.
Or
but
turn them off. We put them on those.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
my alarm, so it goes on the thing, or
Yes.
play some meditation music and puts me to sleep. But
Yeah.
it could be useful, but you just don't pick it up.
Exactly.
So, create
Yeah.
rules around that idea.
And we've ended up buying alarm clocks.
Yeah, I thought about that going back to
that
old
have
school.
been awesome, actually. And so we've gotten alarm clocks. I leave my phone in our bathroom or on my closet shelf. So you walk through my bedroom to get there. But I don't leave it beside my bed anymore. But and the other piece to that, when we're tired, we actually scroll more, and the blue light from the screens decreases our melatonin for like the next 30 hours. It's suppressed. And so then we also sleep lousy because of that evening. I think in our minds are like, oh, I'm going to veg and unwind. But that kind of unwind actually makes it worse for trying to sleep.
And a lot of the content is not relaxing.
Right.
It's politics. It's, oh my gosh, there's another war happening across the ocean, or like this terrible thing happened, or I'm really mad about that. So it's not stuff that like actually helps us to unwind. It's getting us going.
Yeah. Stimulating our brain. Yeah.
I think like I'm 35. I feel like I was part of the last generation to know both, to know the life before computers versus the life with. And I held on to that longer because my family didn't get a home computer, a real one that had internet capabilities, until I was 16. So I had a really long period of time where I didn't have a cell phone until I was 18, where I wasn't online and didn't have that connectivity. And now when I think back to it, I'm like, what was I doing?
I was in college.
I can't remember, like, how did I get in touch with friends? Like, how did we make plans? And it's interesting because I was building skills and like how to think ahead, how to plan ahead, how to problem solve. So all of these things I'm seeing in my young clients now, like those teenagers to even 20s, late 20s, early 30s, they don't know how to do that stuff.
And only them. So let's just say you train your child how to do that. So I'm raising older teenagers, young adults now. So if I said, okay, plan ahead, great. But then their friends change their plans. If they're not on whatever Snapchat to change their plan, they wouldn't know. Right? My son literally lives in Florida, and I downloaded Snapchat so I could talk to him. So that's how we communicate. I mean, I love that it's video, and so it's face to face, eye to eye. Like I love that, but he's like FaceTime. I don't do FaceTime, mom. Like you once in a while, but
I know
that's how we communicate. So I'm like, okay, I need proof of life every single day from your face. So that's what we do.
Yeah.
So it's finding those ways to navigate all of those things that we're dealing with our kids, but then they're in their own ecosystem of their own, social circles too.
It's hard because we feel like everybody else, like I have to download this or I have to have this device because everybody else has it.
Yeah.
And I think that was, I mean, hats off to our kiddo because he walked a path alone a lot.
Yeah.
Like he did not have a cell phone until high school and partway into grade 9.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. And I think that's what our world needs a bit more of though, is people willing to do things differently than what everybody's doing, or we're just stuck in this rut that this is the only way. And not that we need to all get rid of, you know, electronics completely. They're very useful. I think there's incredible things we can do with them, but we need to really, when it comes to our kids, we have to remember the developmental stages.
Yes.
Like I often think of it as like a kid learning to drive. My 8 or my 10-year-old aren't physically and psychologically ready yet to drive a vehicle. They will crash the car. So if I give them a smartphone at 10, they will crash electronically. And you know, and they have to get older, and then we take a learner's test, and now I drive with my 15-year-old.
Yeah, we scaffold them throughout this
Yes,
process.
we have these steps and stages that we work through. And so we need to think of introducing technology as like learning to drive almost in a way in steps in technology. So, and it needs to be dependent on circumstances. I know that there isn't a perfect or exact age for every family or every kid because of their family circumstances. But I think that if you can start with like a watch, if they always walk home from school alone, or you're not there when they get home from school because you're at work, like if you need it for a tool in that way, then start with something small and basic. The research is showing though that they shouldn't have a smartphone till at least out of middle school for them to be miles ahead of the game as far as, you know, development and social skills and all of that. So when I'm referring to a smartphone, I mean like other untethered access to apps and stuff. If they need to use a flip phone, because I know some moms are like, my daughter gets asked to babysit. I don't want them on some adult cell phone. There's no home phone. So I know some parents who've gotten a little flip phone for when they need to take it, they can. It's the family flip phone, you know, like try to be creative in ways of stages that they can start with. And then one thing that I love a lot is and my son doesn't love it as much, but it's the pinwheel phone. So it just got introduced in Canada in June of this year, but we got one into Canada before it was here and ordered it through the States. And I was like, I want to use a phone that's not a smartphone. I didn't want to mess with all the parental controls. So this is literally a talk and text phone. I have to approve his contacts, and I can set schedules on it. So when he's in school, his phone only works for his emergency contacts. As they grow, they've got thousands of apps you can download onto it when you feel like they're ready, but it has no internet access. So if somebody texts him a link, it won't go to the internet. So he's got like his guitar tuning app and some, you can add to it. But zero social media, zero internet access was what we started him on. And that's been awesome because I can just go into my parental controls. I can check in on some things. I can choose even if some contacts can send him an image or not, which has been nice and helpful.
That's good.
And so, you know, it's tricky because on the one hand, some people feel like, well, they have to learn how to use it, which I totally agree. I can't, you know, keep them from all technology. This is the learners.
Scaffold you through this and bit by bit, I'm going to give you more access and more freedom. And
and so it's been really great starter in that way. And then we can add apps to it. And so, you know, the end goal is by the time they're graduating, then you'll be ready for this. But research is showing for social media specifically, they should be at least 16 years old. On the same hand, you need to really decide if your child is ready for that impact of that. Do they know who they are before the world starts telling them how to look and how to dress, especially for girls?
All the things.
It's really impactful on girls. So thinking of it in stages. And I think I've deviated from whatever question you asked.
That's okay. That's okay. I think that's what we're kind of all about. We just kind of go down a road.
But I'm hearing just as, because again, my kids are older, it'd be harder to do that. I mean, my kids are, you know, adults really, to go backwards. So to have someone that you come in and assess and do that early on when your kids are little, like your kids age, well, let's create these family plans. I love the idea of the weekly meeting. How can we integrate this? What's our timeline? I think preparation and for the kids to know, kind of having some predictability of like, oh, I get to do screen time at
Yes.
this time, and mama does too for this time,
Yeah.
early on,
Yeah.
rather than be, proactive better than,
Yeah.
reactive.
And we've never said, when you turn this age, you get this device.
Yeah.
I've just always felt like it's individual. All 4 of my kids are different. They all have different needs. But I think that another resource I love from Better Screen Time is she has this little self-evaluation that they can fill out. That's, am I ready for a cell phone?
Mm-hmm.
And some of it's really simple. Like, do my parents need to remind me to have a shower? Yes,
Right.
often,
Mm-hmm.
no, kind of a sheet. And so it's like, as they gain responsibility in regular life,
Yeah.
are you responsible to take on this new? It's a
Yeah.
responsibility
Yeah.
to be
I
on a
love that
device.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
So
highly
that's
distracting.
been awesome to, like, every once in a while be like, hey, let's fill out the page again and see where we're at, and she has now another side for the parents to fill out, so you can compare your evaluation. It stirs conversation and things to work towards.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my kids won't get it all at, let's say all on their 15th birthday or something.
Yeah,
It's
for
going to
sure.
be dependent on that
On that.
child too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that takes into account different neurological capabilities. So I'm thinking of kids with ADHD or autism. It might take them a bit longer to
Right.
build up those skills to be able to handle, like you said, the dopamine hits, because
Yes.
those are rough when
Yeah.
when your
Yes.
brain is searching for that stuff
Yeah.
all the time.
Because that's what
Yeah.
it does. Dopamine isn't the
Mhm.
pleasure, and because pleasure, it's not. It's to seek pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm creating that chemical shift of seeking all the
Mhm.
time.
Yes. And that's something for parents to watch for, is when they start to lose interest in things they used to enjoy. So when we're used to having high levels of dopamine, our body starts to make less dopamine
Mhm.
naturally. So if let's use video games as an example, if they used to love playing basketball, now they're like, I don't care, I'd rather play video games. That's a sign that they're getting too much time on that. So even with older teenagers, it is way harder to pull back.
Mhm.
But there's signs of addiction that we can watch for in screen time. And I think having those conversations, that would look something like, these are the things I'm noticing or I'm seeing, and I'm concerned because this is what I'm learning, and open that door to conversation. Let's work on something together. How can we cut back a little bit? And maybe if they play for 3 hours a day, you're cutting back to 2.5 for a while.
And increase
you're
something
setting a
else.
yeah.
Like basketball again.
Yes. And have other ways to fill their time and start weaning things down.
Yeah.
And trying to create more time with their parents and with friends as well.
Yeah.
And it will take time. Kids who have heavy screen use, when you read the books on detox from screen time, initially they really need a lot of one-on-one time with parents. And so it can take a week to really decrease that high dopamine levels. To detox their body, they need a good 4 to 6 weeks. When people have a real addiction, it's 4 to 6 weeks clean eventually, but you've got to kind of wean to that. But my point is if we don't have a good relationship with our kids, we won't have much impact in those conversations.
Yep.
So that's another thing that I've found really helpful. My husband and I also do these one-on-one dates with our kids. And we've been doing that long before screens were a problem. So I'm kind of grateful it was something we already had established.
Yeah.
But we each take one of the kids on a date every month, which doesn't sound like much, but it's also really hard to schedule in. And they're simple, and it's an hour or two. And I don't know, that one-on-one time with them is so helpful, I find, in strengthening relationships, so that then you're willing to have those conversations when you have a foundation of a relationship too.
Yeah. Well, foundation, discussion and influence on pushing them to do other stuff.
Yes.
Like raising, a busy boy, I raised a, busy kid, but I found for him, like COVID was where I really saw him start to play video games, because he was in grade 10, I think, when COVID first hit. So high school, and he would play the odd game, Mr. Social.
Yeah.
But that's where I saw him start to play. It's like, we couldn't, hockey was canceled in schools, all the things, right? And so I really struggled. I was like, well, how much do I limit him from that? Because that's where his friends all are. So hockey team is on there playing this game together. So we talked about that. I said, I get what you're doing and why you're doing it, but I also want to see you still go outside. And so we got a skidoo, and I said, bring your friends here. We built a rink, and we'll do the things here and so that influence of, like what you're saying, I see this and I see what you're doing. I get that you're socializing, and I also know who you are as a kiddo, and that you're a busy outdoor kid. So let's, bring some activities to you.
Yeah.
And it didn't take much. And even today, like even now, if he's nothing else to do, he'll play a video game.
Yeah.
But he'd way rather go golfing or play hockey
Yeah.
or play basketball or anything else that's active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome. You touched on how you're validating
Mhm.
what it is for them.
Yeah.
Like that we get it.
I
Like,
totally get it. This
oh,
is
these are
social
your
group.
friends.
Yeah.
These are, you find enjoyment in this. Or it's really hard to be the one kid that's not,
Yeah.
they really need to be heard
Yeah.
and validated in that. And then it takes time and effort for parents
That's the other part. That's the other part.
to make
'Cause then
the
it's like,
change.
okay, now I
Now
gotta
it's on
like
me.
figure out a way to get those kids
Yes.
here and build and do the things, or I gotta figure out a way to get my kid to the golf course or then yeah. So I think that's what you were saying too,
Yeah.
as a parent, we're all so busy. And so having to pause and go, okay, I gotta really, I'm like at the end of our days, am I gonna be like grateful I put those extra hours into work or cleaning my house, or I get those are
Yeah.
important, or like a clean house too.
Yes.
But at the end of your days, you're gonna be like, I'm really grateful I took that extra hour to take my kid golfing,
Yeah.
and take him for a walk, or take him
Yeah.
for the date, or
Yeah. Because the years do end up going by
So
quick.
fast.
When my
They
kids
do.
were little, I felt like it would never end. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they get bigger and the years have sped up and
Yeah.
the time with them is really short.
Yeah. And now I'm sitting begging, my son comes home this weekend. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so what
Please
are our
come home.
hours? Like, when do I
Yeah.
get to have you? When's my time? We got your girlfriend here and your friends here. I'm like,
Yeah.
when's my time?
Pull them in.
Please, totally. And what are we gonna do?
I think that's such a good thing to touch on though, is parent capacity, because when I was
Mhm.
talking, or when we were talking about reeling things in for older
Yeah.
kids, I'm hearing the parents on the other side being like,
Oh,
yeah,
hard time.
right.
Mhm.
Right.
Because it can feel like a bomb going off in your house when you put in those hard boundaries.
Mhm.
Especially if you don't, like you said, had that really strong two-way relationship
Mhm.
happening already. So from my experience working with at-risk youth in like the 10 years before I got into this kind of work, what we used to do is we take all the kids camping every year.
Mm.
So imagine this, 30-ish kids between the ages of 13 and 25.
Oh, wow. Big spread.
All in tents on a big group campsite. And they were not allowed to bring their phones. And that was that first day.
Mhm.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah.
So it was, like you said, that detox.
Mhm.
And you get nasty comments, you get sideways glances, you get all the attitude, you get the slamming doors, all of it.
Yeah.
And they talk about how the sky is falling, how they're missing out on all this stuff, how they're not gonna like have a boyfriend when they get home or whatever.
And
But
that's the reality. That's
Totally.
literally their brain. That's their reality.
Yeah.
So if we just go, and minimize it, we're going to lose connection. We go,
Yeah.
I totally get how hard this is for you.
yeah, and it was really hard for that first day.
Yeah.
And then by the second day, third day, you saw them
Day 3, you can see
play.
a physical
They
shift.
started
Yeah.
to play.
Yeah.
So kids that were like too cool for school, tough as like they've been through so much crap, started to do things like hide and seek,
Mhm.
play tag,
Yeah.
like stuff that you would never expect them to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things that sticks out in my mind before I was a parent of like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
this is like a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest benefits to delaying as long as possible. You're like literally preserving their childhood.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
maybe my son doesn't want people to know this, but like he played Lego.
Oh, yeah.
He
mine too.
still will sit
Mhm.
down
Mine
with
too.
the little kids. Like he'll play Lego, like those
Not
kinds
alone.
of things, because it's
Yeah.
just like, it's so good for them to be able to
Totally.
have those outlets that
Yeah.
are playful.
My daughter turned 18 yesterday and she got Lego. Just so you know.
Yeah.
From her boyfriend.
That's a good
We're
healthy
doing it.
sign.
We're doing it. So
Awesome.
he's
Awesome.
fine.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they need that. And that's one of the biggest things
Mhm.
that actually my son mentioned. So he in the beginning it was like, why can't I have a cell phone? Which shifted to understanding why he couldn't have a cell phone, to later on at the end of grade 8, we were having a conversation. He's like, I'm actually glad I didn't have a cell phone in middle school. And he talked about how, yeah, you're like, oh,
It takes
what
a
have
long
we
time.
been together? And there are definitely days where he wasn't happy about it,
Sure.
but overall
Yeah.
he was. But he talked about how he started to notice in his peers this, like, it was this weight of the world on them.
Mhm.
You have to
Yeah.
grow up faster when you're
Mhm.
exposed to all of the news and all of
Yeah.
the school drama. And it's a heavier life
Yeah.
Yeah.
when you have all of that.
Yeah.
Well, and when it's in your pocket all the time, you can't escape it. And
Yes.
that's something that I always think back to the way I grew up is when I left school, I left it.
Mhm.
There was nothing
Mhm.
following me
Yeah.
home.
You need it.
True,
And we
right?
need that.
So
Yeah.
if I had a fight with my friend that day, I could go home and talk to my mom about it, but I
Yeah.
didn't have to live it while I was at home.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was a safe space to run from
Exactly.
it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or maybe not run, but take a break.
But just take a
Yeah.
break, take a breather.
And process with an adult.
Yeah.
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 And that's why I think as adults, we can really set an example in creating healthy boundaries in that.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I took a 10-year break I could give you a list of reasons why I left social media, but I took a 10-year break. And then when I was deciding to start sharing this information, I felt like I don't want to get sucked back into
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
hole. So, what are my really specific boundaries around it? So for me, I have a 15-minute limit on my app to keep my scrolling to a minimum. So I get notified like, oh, that was a quick 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I won't go on social media until I've taken care of my mind and my body first. So for me, that's exercising and my scripture study. If those two things don't happen a day, social media doesn't either.
Nice.
So I have all my notifications off. I never go on Sundays, so I for sure have a break day that day. Usually every Saturday I'm off as well. And then every few months I take a week to 2 weeks off of social media again to take a break. And so I feel like I've been able, when I'm using social media, it's intentional.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, this is what I'm using it for, time's up, and then you walk away from it instead of pulling it out whenever you have a second
Mhm.
Yeah.
in those lulls of your day.
Yeah.
Then those lulls are used for other things like thinking or remembering to call somebody, or
Yeah.
I don't know, when you've got some real set boundaries on how you're going to use it.
It's like I said at the very beginning of having that talk with your kids. Like, I'm going to go on here for this long. Do that with yourself then. Same idea.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, okay, self, I'm going to go on there for 15 minutes. I'm going to create a post about my content, or I'm going to do
Yeah.
this thing, or I'm going to check out my kids, pictures from hockey this weekend or whatever.
Send a message to my grandma
Nice.
who's
Yeah.
still on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to do this for this period of time out loud to myself,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Like, be honest
Yeah.
with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
hard
it
to
So,
is.
yeah, but, yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's designed to suck
It's
you in.
designed.
That's
It's
how they made it.
designed to
For
make
sure.
you
Yes.
go down a rabbit
Yes.
hole, right?
And we've also been told that, if our kids aren't on there, they're going to be behind in education, but they're not. Like the technology is not that educational.
Yeah.
Most of
No.
it being
Yeah.
advertised as
I
educational.
personally love like Khan Academy. Do you know
Mhm.
that one?
Yes.
It saved me during COVID,
Yes.
for sure, because I'm not good
I
at
used
math.
it too.
Yeah. So again, if you're like, we're going to go on Khan Academy for this math thing that we're
Yes.
doing today, or whatever the thing you want to use.
Yes.
And you're saying it out loud, and we're just watching this guy do math equations.
Yeah. But the educational games are
Oh,
dopamine
yeah.
hits.
Right.
still.
Yeah. I'm tried those. Yeah.
So even like Minecraft education is dopamine hits.
Yeah.
So you have to be aware of that too. But the creators of the technology have
Right.
their kids in low tech or no tech
Yeah.
schools
Mhm.
when you actually look at that perspective.
Because they know.
Yeah.
They know.
Because they know what it's doing to them.
Yeah.
So,
So TikTok is banned in China, where it's
Yeah.
in Korea, but it's not even allowed there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things we could get into there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's just so daunting as a parent because it's everywhere you turn. Like
Mhm.
even you go to, let's say, the dentist, they've got a TV or an iPad they want
Yeah.
to throw at your kid to keep them distracted while they do their
Yeah.
work. And all I see as someone who's familiar with the child development is that blank stare. So that was something when we were looking for shows that for the every once in a while that my kids
Mhm.
get to watch something, what doesn't make them go into like complete zombie mode? Because I put on Coco Melon once for my 2-year-old, and it was like borderline drool coming out of the mouth.
Yeah.
Like brain was completely consumed by this show, and I was so overstimulated because there's so many sounds and
Yeah,
lights
lights
and
and
colors,
lights, yeah.
and it's like, whoa, okay, that's
Yeah.
never happening again.
Yeah.
So are there apps or shows or things to watch for as a parent? Like this is okay, this maybe we should avoid or limit how much we interact with.
So interactive is way more stimulating than passive. So TV screen of a movie is passive entertainment
Gotcha.
versus, so the two things are, is it interactive and how far is the screen from their face?
Mhm.
From what I've learned. So this is in Dr. Victoria Dunkley's book that's a detox, how to reset your child's brain. And so watching the same thing on an iPad compared to across the room on a TV would also be a different in the stimulation. I'm pretty sure the minutes comparatively, 30 minutes like on an iPad or something interactive is about the same amount as 2 hours on a passive television across the room, as far as gauging how much more stimulating it is. So we just have to remember that our eyes are direct access to our brain. So when a screen is that close to your face, you know, if a kid's watching a movie on an iPad, they usually bring it an inch or two from their face. So that's going to be more stimulating. Shows specifically, I haven't done much research on what shows would be less stimulating. If they're less interactive, they'd be less stimulating.
And watching your kids' reaction, like you said.
So something that we've kind of gone to is old stuff.
Yes.
Older cartoons.
Old ones.
Because they're not 3D. They don't have, it's not this, it doesn't seem like there was much of a focus on like, how long can I get your kid to watch this?
Yes.
Whereas
you would
now
have half an hour after school.
Yes.
Flintstones are going to watch that.
And also teaching kids that when the show's over, you're done. Because that's what I found with, like, when I was a kid, the channel ended, you know, like it was on at a certain time, it's over. But where our kids have this ongoing, never ending flow of possibilities when it comes to screen time. So even just learning to like end, like it's over, we're done.
That's it till next Monday.
But as far as like parental controls and stuff with like cell phones, I love the Pinwheel because the parental controls are built in. The parental controls are an app on my phone. But like Apple has parental controls, you have to really do your homework on that and know that the controls often are completely reset once you do an update on the device. So that's a word of caution going through Apple. I actually brought like my resource page that I give to parents. It's like a 2-page document.
Awesome.
But some of the parental controls that I haven't used, but I've heard really good things about them. Family Link is a good one. So that can be Android and iPhone. If one of you have one of each, that can work. Compatibility, RPact. There's specific apps that help with pornography problems too. There's so much out there now. There's a ton of resources. And so when you're anticipating that they're getting close to the right time to have a device, you really need to do your homework first. You can go into the phone companies and be like, help me set this up. I've had people that have gone and done that too. Their websites will give you step-by-step. I love using, it's called Protect Young Eyes is another great resource. And they will have step-by-step images on their website of how to set up parental controls for an Apple Watch or on your iPhone. So it's going to be more work initially, but in the long run, over time, it will be worth it. I think we have to keep the big picture in all of this, is remembering it's going to feel like a lot of work right now, but it's worth it. And also remembering that when you give them that next step, it won't be long before they're going to be asking for the next step. So are you ready to open that door right now? Are we ready for this? And we just always kept coming back to, what is the purpose in needing this? If the answer is because everybody else has one, then that's probably not the reason we're not ready yet. And really having a discussion. And I have to say that every time we had this conversation with our oldest, he came back to say, yeah, I actually don't need one yet. Like, I don't feel like it was just us shoving it down his throat.
How empowering.
And now my other kids, I have a kid in grade 7 who hasn't asked for a cell phone because his older brother didn't have one. You know what I mean? And so really it's paved a way for our family. And so it does get easier over time. And I've really noticed, the less time my kids spend on screens, the less they want to spend time on screens. You know?
It's a cycle, right? It's a self-fulfilling thing.
Sure. So it does get easier. And they think of other things. And being bored, they don't just think to want a screen. They can think of other things they want to do. So it's just slow, steady persistence. And a lot of conversation.
Well, and that introspection as a parent too, right? This isn't just a kid's problem. I mean, my grandparents came from the generation of like work comes home with you. So when they got a cell phone, then they're answering emails all the time. So even now, like, I'll get on my parents a little bit being like, You gonna talk to me? These dang kids on their phones all the time
Yes.
because
Yes.
like the older generation does it too, and
It's
I do
true.
it.
Mhm.
So like you said, that sharing your kind of boundaries for yourself with the rest of the family.
Mhm.
At our house, we're not allowed to have our phones at the table. We don't
Yes.
have a TV on when
That's
it's
one of our
supper
ground
time.
rules too. That's a great
So
one.
my 4-year-old knows that. So
Yeah.
if one of us has a phone at the table, he's like, "Dad, no phones at the table."
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
You're
well
right.
done.
And your kids, that's
They will
one
call
of
you
their
out.
strengths. They
Yes.
will
Yeah.
call you out like, hey, remember you told me you were gonna do this. Oh yeah.
Thanks, kiddo.
So yeah, they're good at that. And I think it's good for them for us to be like, you're right.
Mhm.
I need to keep working at this.
Yeah, I'm in charge, but this is also a collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have a say. Your voice
Totally.
matters here.
And 4-year-old, like toddlers in general, love telling people what to do. Because they get told what to do all day long.
They do.
So they love it when you give them just a little bit of like ownership and power.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. It's
So if you're going to go into a family and do an assessment and then help them establish something, would you, I'm hearing as I'm thinking about it, would you be more inclined to work with the parents first, like having a meeting with the parents first and kind of seeing how they're sitting with things? And
I think I'd love to visit with parents first, get a sense of their concerns
yeah,
and their habits.
and then how to support them through knowing this be work for them. Like this is going to be work
Mhm.
for you as a parent, depends on what age your
Yeah.
kid is, to start to create these boundaries and this collaboration
Yes.
and
And
accountability.
especially if you're already into teenagers and you've had no boundaries, to understanding like taking a few steps backwards is going to be
Yeah.
extra hard in the
Mhm.
beginning.
Yeah.
But I always kind of think of it though too, when I've had conversations with some parents where they're like, this, I don't know if I can do that. Like that's
Mhm.
going to be too hard.
Yeah.
Well, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
If you
Mhm.
carry on the way you're going, this isn't going to get any better. It's going to get worse,
Yeah.
you know? And so, yeah, meet with the parents first and kind of gauge that way. But then it would be kind of initiating, you'd kind of be walking them through as a family, that
Yeah.
first initial family tech plan
Yeah, I love
lesson.
that.
And that first lesson and the quick guide, this is what the lesson is learning how our technology can be used as a tool. So
Yeah.
like, what are all the ways that it's a helpful tool?
Yeah.
It's a great calendar, a camera. It's a small camera now
Yeah.
that I have.
Mhm.
You know, all the ways that it's a helpful tool. What are the things we need to watch out for? And having a discussion around that. When I do presentations with some of my younger students, we literally run through that and get
Excellent.
feedback from them. And kids are smart. They
Oh, yeah.
know what the hazards and risks are. Their answers are always like, well, sometimes you can get an addiction to it and you got to watch out for this. Like, it's not like they don't know.
Yeah, I know.
You know, they're smart. So I think it's creating a team effort and getting on board together and having your kids. I've actually in my presentations with parents and actually with students, I have them do an anonymous rating of their cell phone use. So I give them a scale. A 1 looks like this, a 10 looks like this. Where do you think you're sitting in your phone use? And when I'm discussing with parents, I encourage them to go home and have their kids rate them. Use the same scale and have your kids rate you.
Yeah.
And I've done that with my kids more than once. It's a humbling experience
Absolutely.
sometimes.
Absolutely.
And it's so good for them to have the opportunity to be like, yeah, actually, when you do this and this, I feel like you're ignoring me.
Yeah.
Or you take your phone to the bathroom all the time.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
getting their perspective is a good wake up
Yeah.
call.
Do
As
there are parents that don't want to, or that are resistant to their use?
For the most part, I find in my situation, they're open to it because they've made the effort to be there.
Okay.
Like parent nights are the people who want to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you just a general population, and I actually had parents of a whole school there, I'm sure you'd run into that more. But the people that come are genuinely interested, I find,
yeah.
when they've made the effort.
Because I kind
to
of
it.
feel like, again, clientele wise, I could
Mhm.
see how the kids would be more interested, even though they'd be resistant to change because it's hard.
Yes.
But more interested of like growing their brain and having outlets and,
Mhm.
you know, having options. For some parents, I'd be like, this is the routine. This is new and it's easier and it's an easy way for me to, numb out or whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I could see parents being resistant to it as well.
Yes.
More
And I mean that
Totally.
that speaks into something that I've seen too, where parents are anxious and they want to know where their kids are all the time.
Yes. There's
They need
that
to
end of it
be
too.
messaging them throughout the day.
Yeah.
And when I think back to like how I grew up, my parents didn't know where I was until I got home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's a certain amount of freedom that comes with that as a kid, where I don't think.
Yeah,
I
and
had
you
it.
learn that they trust you, that you're
Yes, yeah.
capable. I think there's kind of two sides to the coin in this. There's the parents who it's hard to be told that we're doing something wrong as a parent.
Mhm.
Like it feels
Mhm.
like an
Yep.
attack
Mhm.
on the way you're doing things. And it's hard to be like, oh,
Ouch.
I'm not
Yeah.
doing a good job
Yeah.
at this.
Yeah.
So that piece of it, but then
Yeah.
there's the other side where I think that you're touching on
Mhm.
with the it's the parental anxiety that's almost making it worse for
Yeah.
some kids, that
Yeah.
continual connection that they
Yeah.
need to know, and that just creates more anxiety in our children
Absolutely.
as well.
And they don't build those problem solving skills. Like, oh shoot,
Yes.
that didn't go the way I want. What do I do now? Well, I have mom in my pocket, so I'll just
Right.
call her.
Right.
Which is great if they can have that, but sometimes it's good if they just
Yeah.
have to kind of figure it out.
Well, and I think we forget, you talked about this, the ways that things used to be.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
some parents will be like, well, what if I need to get a hold of them? Well, the office still has a phone at the
Yeah.
school. They still have an attendance protocol. If my kid doesn't make it,
Yeah,
I
they
get a
notify
phone
you.
call and
Yeah.
a text.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like there are safety nets put in place. So are
Yeah.
we overthinking it?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
school wise, all of those same protocols are in place.
Mhm.
Some people I've heard are like, well, what if there was a school shooting? Well, then they should be paying attention to the adult in the room and not
Mhm.
texting you,
Absolutely.
quite frankly.
Yeah.
So
Safety plans in place.
yes, the safety plan is in
Yeah.
place.
Same with
So
fire, all the things.
yeah, sometimes I think as parents, we are on the hand of not helping because of our lack of will to change. And on the other hand, our own fears are
Fear.
getting in the way. Whenever
Absolutely.
we parent out of fear, we're
Yeah.
generally
Yeah.
it's not the best way to go about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, parents, it's tough, especially if you've got some of those like anxiety things happening.
Mhm.
Therapy's a great place to,
Yes,
to work
come
on
to
that
these
stuff.
guys.
Because it's right, like you're right, it's scary if you,
Yeah.
especially if you've had that connection to them,
Yeah.
that constant.
And our world
Heather?
is scary.
Mhm.
Like if
Mhm.
sometimes when I've been learning about this, you can get to a place where you're like, oh, online predators, they can be groomed in 17 minutes and blah, blah. Like
Yeah.
it can get overwhelming and scary, but you have to put it back into perspective of what I have control over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it always for me comes back down to my relationship with them and what we're doing in our home.
Yeah.
Nobody else is responsible for that.
Yep.
And if I can have a good relationship and we can create boundaries in our home, I'm trusting that as they grow up, they're going to turn out. We just have to have a bit of faith
Yeah.
in that process.
Maybe the naiveness too of like our world is scary, true, because we have this magic box that tells us what's happening in the
Mhm.
world. If I didn't have that box,
I know.
I wouldn't know how scary the world was.
Yes.
And again, it goes back to then my community. So my kids in
Yes.
this school that I chose with these adults or this coach or whatever for this period of time, and if I'm untapped from the world, it's actually not that scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I've chosen things that are safe in a bubble for my,
Yes.
Mhm.
in a community for my children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that
So-
playground down the street and the
Yeah.
neighbors around the playground are
Yeah.
gonna look out for my kids. Like
Yeah.
we're living in this, like you said, fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to be able to ride my bike around the block and my parents couldn't see me for 10 minutes
Mhm.
and that was okay. And
Yeah.
now we feel like we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Or they can't go with 5 of their friends to the playground for
Mhm.
a couple hours.
Because the world is scary. And again, there's real threats for sure.
Mhm.
The guy, and I worked at the jail for a long time. So my kids grew up knowing big words and
Yeah.
strangers and what pedophiles were. And I taught them that when they were little. So, but they still lived at the park and
Yeah.
we didn't have cell phones, obviously, back then.
Yeah.
It wasn't
And
even a thing.
information gives them power for
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah.
So if we have those conversations, things that worry you, learn a bit about it in a dose that won't
Yeah.
stress
scare
you out
you.
too much,
Yeah.
but
Empower you.
enough to be empowered.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like with kids going to the park when we didn't have cell phones. We had walkie-talkies. My kids
Mhm.
would take a walkie-talkie.
Yeah. Didn't have that. I was
So
like, I'll see you in an
there's-
hour.
yeah.
Check in.
Totally.
Right?
Come
Yes.
back if someone's
And it is
bleeding.
good.
Yeah.
And or to
Absolutely.
give them signs like
Yeah.
somebody's bleeding or there's a stranger that you feel uncomfortable,
Come on.
hop back on your bike.
Yeah. Or so-and-so lives across the street from the park. We
Yes.
know their house. You like a safe
Yes.
house to go to. We have our community
Yes.
that we all knew who each other were.
Give them a backup plan
Yeah.
is really helpful.
Yeah.
What would you do in this situation? Who
Yeah.
could you? So another thing too is like, I think we've forgotten that there are phones around that our kids can use.
Yeah.
Well, they need their own cell phone. Well,
Not
when you're at
somewhere.
this place, you could use this phone and there's always teenagers around that have them too.
Mhm.
So
Right. It's true.
yeah, just
Yeah.
coming up with backup
What if
plans.
the world isn't so scary?
Yeah.
Well, and like the use of phones has caused this isolation from each other
Mhm.
Mhm.
as adults too. Even the way that our neighborhoods are designed. So
Yeah.
like in my neighborhood, very much suburbia, you have the garage at the street, you drive in the garage, everybody disappears.
Yeah.
You don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
So it takes a bit of a conscious effort to actually like reach out to your neighbors, and build
Build
relationships with them and say, hey, if my kid's in trouble, do you mind if he can come over and use your phone?
Mhm.
Because those are things that we as parents have to go out and kind of do the groundwork and show our kids how to build a relationship.
And especially if you're trying to make changes in your tech habits with your family, is to create a circle of like-minded parents.
Yes.
Ask other parents, what do you guys do to navigate video games? When are you deciding to give a cell phone? Create more conversation. Things like going to school council. So in your schools, you create more conversation. And as like I found with my son, when he didn't have a phone, we ended up finding another family who they were kind of doing the same thing. They ended up not in the same class later on in middle school, but they only need a couple really close friends to really feel like they have a good friend. And so, I think we can help create those connections in our circles to also give them a bit more of a foundation to go off of when they're walking a different path. And not everybody's going to agree, and that's okay. But
just like every part of life, right?
Create conversations. I think your neighborhood and all of your different circles.
Absolutely.
There was something else I was thinking about with that too. Now it's gone.
I was just thinking you're doing such a good job of asking questions without a list in front of you.
That's my way of processing things. I write it down beforehand and then I never look at it again.
Well, I'm thinking just as a parent again, so how do we, if somebody wants to like have you come in and do an assessment on their family, how would they get a hold of you and what would that look like? And
so I
just think it's a great place to start. Like, I think this is great.
Yes.
People that have motivation to go and do this and do the research, absolutely go do that.
Yes.
But I also know as a parent, I'd be like, can you just come over and we'll
tell me what to do.
tell me like help me assess and look at my screen time and like just I mean, you know the stuff, you have the information.
Right now it's been like friends and family. I have frequent phone calls actually. Frequent, not that frequent, but every couple of weeks. So people can get a hold of me. I do have a website, intentionalwithtech.com.
Okay.
So that's my website. On Instagram, it's at book_cram.
Okay.
Well,
this all
we can link stuff. And so, if they want to get a hold of me, I feel like I'm still navigating what it will look like, but I would love to find ways to help families get started on track and kind of be like, here's our baby steps. I'll be back in 2 weeks to connect with you to follow up. And then we're going to bite off a little more, or maybe we're taking a half step back and just kind of, I think sometimes in life we need somebody to help keep us accountable to do the work.
Absolutely.
And it could be like a 6 to 8 week type of a session. And kind of help them get on track. And I think we don't know when it's so far that we need professional help. And so it might be like, actually in this situation, you really need a counselor or a detox or, and how to set that up. So kind of helping navigate what stage we're at in our digital struggle.
Health. I like that digital health. I think it's just so important. I think it's a really great, and I guess I'm just as where I'm thinking, but to have you come in and assess and ask those questions, because if you're in it, you don't know. And again, this is new. This is only in the last, like, I'm thinking, I was in college and I got my first bag phone. It was in my car because I drove to the States lots. And so I got like this plug-in that only could stay in my car. It's just for emergencies. That was my first cell phone. That was big. You guys remember those? Probably not.
Like smartphones.
Wasn't a smartphone.
It was super new. Like it was like,
this is all new.
2000.
So really none of us really know. Like none of us, even if you think you know all the stuff, unless you've done all the research and read all the books and all about how the brain develops, bring someone like you in, assess the situation. You can help. Accountability is massive because we can listen to 1,000 books and 1,000 podcasts and feel really good. And then we fall back into our patterns. But to have an accountability coach, which is you, to come and say, I'm going to help you set this up with compassion and knowledge and being a parent. So you have all these great angles. And then let me support your family through making these changes for the outcomes that we want. What are your goals?
Yes.
Like, what are the intentions behind we're doing these things now? Like anything in life. If my intention is this, my goal is this, what can I do to make that 1% shift bit by bit?
Little baby steps.
And again, I'm speaking with older kids, if whenever I'd with my son my daughter wasn't really into games of take away his game or, have a discussion about it. It was like a 10-second, like
Yes.
tends, but
Yes.
it wasn't very long where I could redirect him to,
Yeah.
here's the basketball, here's the
Yeah.
hockey stick, here's something else. Let's go golfing, something else to
Yeah.
do.
And you
Felt
learn
big.
what's normal. Like
Yeah.
this is going to be a normal response
Yes.
when you do shut it off. This is
Yeah.
normal.
You're taking
So,
away their cocaine.
yes.
Yeah,
Like
it's
having a reaction
exactly.
to it
Yeah.
because their brain's feeling that. And so
Yeah.
we got to make space to go, I'm not angry for your reaction. I have
Yeah.
empathy for your reaction, I have compassion for your reaction. I get it. And just
Mhm.
that cocoon of safety. Yeah, they weren't long reactions. I
Yeah.
was always like, oh, that was really fast.
Yeah.
Oh, you did it.
Yeah, okay.
And with kids, if you start young, then they just know
Yeah.
they know how that works. How it works.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're ahead of the game when you learn about it when you've
Yeah.
got toddlers and
Yeah.
babies and you just have that mindset of we're going to delay this as long as possible. I think that's what brings me a lot of hope is like young parents
Yeah.
now. I
Amazing.
think there's going to be a shift.
I do too.
Well,
it's
like
happening.
younger millennials, Gen Z, they know.
You know.
They know what
Yeah,
happened.
we don't know, but yeah.
Because they saw it. It either
Mhm.
happened to them, it happened to their friends, it happened to their brother or
Mhm.
sister. And now they know that person who is basically crippled socially,
Yeah.
Mhm.
can't get out of mom and dad's basement, like
Mhm.
lacks all
Mhm.
those.
Doesn't know how to date or connect or
No,
take candy
because
or get a
we
job.
took
or-
that opportunity away
Yeah.
from them with technology.
Yeah.
Which is so sad.
Yeah. But you can what's always amazing to me is the brain will heal.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the two most important things you can do are exercise and sleep
Yeah.
to help your brain heal and
Yeah.
reorganize those connections of the
Mhm.
brain, the rewiring. And
Yeah.
so change is always possible
Always.
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
the brain is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love learning about the brain.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Your work is amazing and so important.
Thanks.
Like so important. I wish I had known this. I kind of got dropped into. Really, for me, it was like during COVID that I kind of saw this all. With my
there was a
older
wake
kids.
up call
It was a
for
wake-up call,
everybody.
yeah.
And we were all just trying to do our best. And all of a sudden we were teachers and
All the
still
things.
doing everything else.
Yeah,
And
and even for me being, I wasn't a big, huge phone user, but then like, what's happening? I live in
Yes.
acreage. I don't really go to town, so I'm like,
Yeah.
what's happening in the world? And then get bombarded by all of this
Yes.
news. And it, about 6 months in, I was like, ugh. This
Yeah.
is my body's dysregulated. So I just deleted them all. I don't know what happens to the news now until my kids usually tell me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, is that real? You heard that on TikTok? I don't know. Like I don't have any of that
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
still. So like unless I don't watch TV really, so I don't
Yeah.
really know. And then I'm like, the world's bad. I'm like, is it? Maybe, but not where I live because
Yeah.
my world is my environment, my local farmers and
Yeah.
friends and the local
Keeping
store
the
that I go to.
perspective.
And I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's a war, I wouldn't even know.
Yeah. Totally.
And that might sound naive, but it doesn't affect my
No.
life here. Right.
No.
I will support my food banks here. I'm going to save some animals here and I'm
Mhm.
going to do what I can do for my community.
Yeah.
And that might sound really selfish, but my little world I live in isn't scary.
That's where you have the most influence and
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
And that's where you can insulate your kids and set them up because eventually they're going to leave your house
Yeah.
and they're going to make their own way.
Yeah.
And
support
you
their
have to
communities.
Mhm.
kind of let them go. So
Yeah.
all we can do is kind of, like you said, build that scaffolding around them so they have the tools they need.
Prepare them with tools, lots of conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a relationship.
Yeah. Relationship
Absolutely.
first. That's everything in my mind anyway.
Yep.
My
Yeah.
bias. It starts there with your relationships.
Awesome.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for
Awesome.
being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
So great. Such good information.
And check out Kaylee's website, her
Absolutely.
stuff on Instagram. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you.
Yes. If you're young parents, proactive, get her in your
Yes.
house and do an assessment and let her teach you everything she knows how to create these tech plans. They're
Don't
amazing.
forget that there's like kind of
Yes.
Yeah, that was the point.
Like that over there.
Cool.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard today, make sure to share, subscribe, and like our channel. Or better yet, share our podcast with others. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Bread Dog Studios production.